Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you kindly for stopping by. Let me start with some macro thoughts because there's plenty going on. China will enter a new phase of opening up, said Xi Jinping. You saw the change in the rhetoric from President Trump yesterday about how the US and China will remain friends, and now you're seeing a response from the Chinese side, who've been very calibrated and granular. Promises to cut auto import duties, ease limits on foreign ownership in the auto industry, amongst other initiatives. That bumped up the S&P. This is seen from Bloomberg. The Dow Jones is up about 340 points in pre-market trading. Immediately bullish response out of the markets, thinking that, things might not go completely in the wrong direction in this negotiation. It's really incredible how many more 1% up or down days there are these days versus 2017. This is the stalwart, and this goes back to last year being a period of, like the Hallison days, a period of calm, unusual. It looks like these sanctions really hurt. Ruble plunges by more than 3% versus the dollar, and Russia default probability jumps by almost 20%. Very dramatic move in the markets after the US slapped new sanctions on Kremlin-connected billionaires. Now, only France has to block Côte d'Azur for Russian oligarchs, and it's game over for Putin, says Olga. Russian stocks tumble the most in more than 4 years after these new sanctions, and there were some very dramatic falls, particularly in the banks. Last macro thought, SenseTime, a Chinese company that analyzes faces and images on an enormous scale, is becoming the world's most valuable AI startup. And I concluded by saying this is the digital panopticon century. Home thoughts, camel safari downtime with Omolo Nomad in Kenya. This is from the Safari Rich. Something I've always wanted to do. From there I jumped to Chinua Achebe. Until the lions have their own historians, the history of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. And then the two photographs I'm posting of lions. One is from the Samburu, that's the dried up Iwaso Nyiro River. Another is of a courting couple in the Masai Mara that I took as well. And then yesterday, as I was scrolling through the Finch Hatton's timeline, because the last time we were there, we heard these lions as if they were just outside the tent. My wife didn't sleep a wink, she told me. I was fast asleep. And she shone her torch all night, apparently looking for them. And I suspect they were very close by. But the point was, I tweeted Finch Hatton's and said, have you seen these lions? And this is from February. Spotted 1 kilometer away from camp, devouring the morning kill. I enjoy the last day of the US Masters, and it evokes many fond memories. I shot this a few years back. That's David Yarrow, whose photographs of elephants I love. But I thought this was an equally clever photograph. Political reflections, Donald Trump says Syria decision imminent as Russia warns of grave repercussions. The US and Russia moved closer to direct confrontation over Syria on Monday night as Donald Trump said a decision was imminent on a response to a chemical weapon attack on Saturday, and Moscow warned that any US military action would have grave repercussions. A little bit tongue-in-cheek, I asked, will he bomb a disused airport or not? But the more serious issue is this, each time Assad is winning, the coincidence between these chemical attacks and Assad winning is very high, that correlation, much higher than any correlation I can find between why, if you are winning, you would do this, other than thumbing your nose at the international community, which I don't think SR is still, after all these years, not that mad to do. So I remain perplexed. I noticed from a tweet that Macron's kind of stepping back, but let's see what happens. The thing is, news like the FBI raids offices home of Trump's personal lawyer sources makes the likelihood of something being bombed in Syria much higher, of course. Mujtahid circles close to Mohammed bin Salman reveal that he has coordinated with Trump and Jared Kushner for the king to abdicate by July 4. That's from WikiLeaks. If this information is correct, he's supposed to declare himself a king within the next 3 months. I don't think he's got any competition anymore at this moment. I wrote a piece on the 13th of November last year, the 32-year-old wannabe king. I still think he's got a lot of challenges. I think he's totally taken with this more militaristic approach, which is wrong, and he's in a quagmire in Yemen. And that Vanity Fair opening paragraph, fresh from a kidnapping spree in Riyadh, sort of summed it up. International markets, Bitcoin, the biggest bubble in history, is popping, says Bloomberg. And they overlay previous big bubbles. The cryptocurrency is tracking the downfalls of the other massive asset price bubbles in history, less than 1 year out from its record. Analysts led by chief investment strategist Michael Hartnett wrote in a note Sunday. The cryptocurrency has fallen more than 65% since peaking at $19,511, rose 2.2% on Monday. It's now back to unchanged 6,632. 2nd of January this year, I said I'm no longer bullish Bitcoin. In fact, I'm bearish. Let's move on to the currency markets. 123.20 euro dollar index 89.96, Japanese yen 107.03, Swiss franc 0.9580, the pound 141.60. That's had a good healthy rebound. Australian dollar was up overnight, now coming off a little bit, 0.7726. India rupee 64.935, South Korean won 1066.40. The Rial 342.26, Egyptian pound 17.65, South African rand 12.0397. Think it's a buy above 12. Question is, how much above it are you willing to try and get it? Dollar index, this is a chart from T Commodity, who's bearish on the index. I still work with that 88 stock for now. Euro dollar 123.22. 125.60 increasingly looks like a very high hurdle for it to top right now, in my view, though Ian, a friend of mine in Dubai, expects it to move and trade new highs around 127 at some point. Gold, let's take a look at what gold is doing. Gold was last at 1336. Crude oil, that had a storming run higher yesterday. We're now at $64.21. Well away from that key area of $60 where I peg key support. Iran tries to unify currency to halt the Rial's record slump. Starting Tuesday, control sales of the dollar in a bid to stem a record decline in the Rial's value on the unregulated market. The government will sell the dollar at a rate of 42,000 Rials to all individuals and businesses, Iran's first Vice President Jahangiri said in a statement, recorded for state TV and published on its website, adding that enemies of the Islamic Republic and of the government were behind the instability. And it really is, if you were an adversary, that's one of the first places you try and put a bit of pressure on them. Go and sell some currency on the black markets and sell it aggressively. We do not officially recognize any other rate from this one, he said. From tomorrow, any other price that's offered in the market will be considered contraband in the same way that illegal drugs are contraband. Earlier today, the Rial slid to a record low of 60,000 Rials against against the dollar on the unregulated market, so he's trying to fix it at 42,000. Playing soccer on the beach in Dili, credit Ben C. Solomon via the New York Times, evocative kind of photograph I found. Wholesale gold jewelry sales in Dubai, sometimes known as the City of Gold, fell 50 to 60% in the first quarter from the year earlier. Moving on to Sub-Saharan Africa, reconnecting the internet is the first litmus test for Ethiopia's new Prime Minister has to pass. That's absolutely correct. Interestingly, he was one of the architects of the internet mechanism of control in Ethiopia. Zambia's bonds plummet on concern it's pulling a Mozambique. Yields on the copper-producing country's $1.25 billion of amortizing bonds due in 2027 rose as much as 54 basis points, the most since February 2016, before paring the increase to 50 basis points on Monday. At 8.45%, the yield was the highest in more than a year. Banks, including Nomura Holdings, say the government may have greater external liabilities than it's made public. That's bad news for holders of Zambia's dollar securities, which were already the worst performers in Africa year to date, through the end of last week, losing 2.4%, according to the Bloomberg Barclays Emerging Markets Dollar Sovereign Bond Index. Finance Minister Margaret Mwanakatwe said on Friday she was carrying out a debt sustainability analysis to move the IMF negotiations forward, and also wants, and this is the important point, to re-profile $3 billion of outstanding Eurobonds. The nation is already restructuring bilateral loans from China state companies. That's not looking very good, and actually that's the Achilles heel in the Sub-Saharan African debt complex, which has all gone directionally in the wrong direction. But Zambia is an outlier, and I don't think President Lungu's head is where it should be in order to deal with this effectively. After Mugabe's fall, new leader makes a pledge to investors, Wall Street Journal. At a faded colonial-era hotel hosting Zimbabwe's first mining conference since the fall of longtime strongman Robert Mugabe, a succession of government officials repeated what has become a familiar mantra: Zimbabwe is open for business. The question is whether investors believe them. Since Mr. Mugabe's resignation in November, new President Emerson Mnangagwa has been at pains to show the world that Zimbabwe is overhauling its dilapidated economy. He has scrapped, for all but diamond and platinum miners, laws that required foreign-owned companies to sell at least 51% of their shares to native Zimbabweans. He has also cut excise duties on gasoline and pledged to clear more than $1 billion in overdue debt owed to international financial institutions. Mnangagwa says his efforts have secured billions of dollars in investment commitments from some of the biggest companies in the world who want to dip into the country's mineral reserves, including platinum, diamonds, and the lithium that powers the batteries in electric cars and mobile phones. Mining, a sector that accounts for more than half of foreign direct investment and export earnings, will be at the heart of any broader economic recovery. The first 100 days of the new government was a lot of talks at Alex Mambere, chief executive of Zimplats Holding. So he's got a point. 20th of November last year, I wrote about how the genie was out of the bottle. Respondents, this is interesting, this is from Simon Baptist, who obviously works for the European Union. He put together a report which I haven't managed to read, but I read his tweets. Respondents reported their firms are biased towards investing in East and West Africa based operations and are more inclined not to invest any additional capital in their Southern Africa-based operations. 64% of respondents indicated their firm's Africa-based profit margin was the same or higher than their firm's global average. Notwithstanding, in 2017, West Africa-based commercial operations were reported to have the highest of greater than 10% year-on-year sales growth when compared to other African regions. South Africa has now overtaken Nigeria as the top market by revenue. This is a significant shift from previous feedback when Nigeria was rated as either the top market by revenue in the year or the survey, or expected to be within a 5-year period. South African all shares down 5.74% so far this year. Dollar versus Rand, as I said, we're back above 12. I still think we're headed towards 11. Egyptian pound, this has been around here at 1765 for quite a while. Nigeria's President Buhari is to run again in 2019, his aide says. Buhari has just officially announced his intention to seek re-election in 2019, Bashir Ahmed said Monday in a tweet, detailed soon. He will be 80 years old in his second term, and the average age of his citizens is 18. The divergence between the age of the rulers and the ruled in Africa is extreme and unprecedented. Of course, the youngest leader is currently Dr. Ahmed, 41, in Ethiopia. Nigerian all share up 5.72% year to date. Ghana Stock Exchange up 31.63% year to date, and the world's best. Kenya shilling is at 101 the figure. Nairobi all shares up 12.77% this year. Very low volume grind lower yesterday. NSE 20 is up 2.64% so far this year. I wrote a piece over the weekend about Barclays Kenya. I said the price action is the signal. The recharacterization of a more than 100-year-old franchise is certainly a delicate operation requiring finesse, but I am of the view that by wresting control of the business and bringing that control back to the continent, it will prove a uniquely positive catalyst for the business, and that was why I made Barclays Kenya one of my conviction trades for 2018. Since making that call, Barclays has romped 34.985% higher year to date, and that's without investors receiving their full year dividend, which will juice returns further. That plus 34.985% return is vastly outperforming a 3.22% return in Barclays PLC, now downgraded to junk, and a 2.648% return in Barclays Africa Group. My view is, and it's been confirmed by the market, that by wresting control back to Africa and away from the City of London, the business is on the cusp of a liberation. It will no longer be second-guessed by folks sitting far away. The business will be managed by those who are on the ground and up close and personal to the action. These are indeed exciting times for the soon-to-be renamed business, and I expect all stakeholders, employees, customers, shareholders to continue to react positively. My target price is 15. Barclays Kenya is up, as I said, 34.985% as of this morning, and it's trading higher. Barclays Africa is to be split into 4 units in a new growth strategy. The lender outlines its growth strategy after the sale by its UK parent. Barclays Africa is separating its business from its UK parent in a process that started in 2016, due to be completed in early 2021. Barclays Africa is in 10 countries with 2 further representative offices, wants to double in size and capture at least 12% of banking revenues across the continent. Take a look at that article if you're interested. I recommended it at the beginning of the year when I recommended in Nairobi Safaricom Standard Chartered and Barclays, all of which delivered very strong returns year to date. And actually, I remain bullish about the Nairobi Securities Exchange. I think we've still got further to go. Thank you for stopping by.